everyone, and welcome to Concept to Culture. Today we have with us two architects. I know them as architects, but today you will be introduced to a lot of nuances of architect Aswin and architect Bihag. Let's sort of hand it over to both of you to explain to us and take us through what do you actually do.
Thanks, Pooja, for this podcast, wonderful podcast. Keep doing it. So it's called BAM.AKA, Bihag Abdul Majeed and Aswin Kumar Anti-Talks. So within that, AKA has its own style of working and BAM has its own style of working. Entirely different. I can show you the logo, how it is designed and everything. Mine is so bold and his is too much of curves and everything, a lot of stuff. Right opposite. Similarly, I would say the kind of decisions that we make for the design, the execution, and everything, it also has these kind of disagreements and agreements a lot. So I can explain one thing, how we came into place, BAM and AK together into a design brand or something like that. Is that one thing is that although personally we might not be similar, a lot difference, but creatively we have a lot of things in common. Something is drives us is, I would say, the thirst for creation mostly. There are options like the where we started from architecture, then we end up even designing the door handling and manufacturing it. That too, in some cases we had to put our own money into it, but still we really wanted to make it up. Okay.
Oh, I'm sorry to cut in, Ash, and just adding, I really like how he said, primarily we started off as as people who primarily disagreed with each other. The one thing because in every other way, we're very different. We come from very different backgrounds, but we connected simply through art. And the fact that it started off as rivalry and then it turned into friendly rivalry. And then we thought instead of fighting the enemy, we might as well join because we too seem to be the only ones who were setting up challenges to, and then the rest started joining. And this is prior to the college days, I'm saying. And after that, we practiced separately. And what we understood is we have, like I said, we have a thirst for creation. We like to create anything and everything, and not necessarily just architecture. And when people say architecture, they imagine houses, buildings, and how we've been taught is it's the mother of all art. So in a way, the only roof that could roof all these talents, as Ashwin says, something that we like drawing, whether it's pottery or whether it is oil painting or music or whatever it is, seem to be under this roof. And to be honest, we never started with the idea that it's going to be multidisciplinary. If anything, we convinced our family by saying the only profession that can house all of our likes is this. So you might as well just let us. So more like fake it till you make it sort of thing. We just wanted to practice what.
Right. No, very fair enough, right? And it organically took pace over a period of time. I think to sort of just give our audience a little more clarity when we say multidisciplinary, right? What are some verticals that you sort of work under? Because I know architecture is one, there is design, but what are some other umbrellas that you've touched base on?
So, like the classic approaches, which is regular design of built structures, as in houses, villas, apartments, we started off with that because that's what is in practice. Once you get out of college, that's the flow. And once that started to wear us out, we thought, why not go back to our roots? And then again, Ashwin takes up a lot of sketching and a lot of drawing, a lot of back to the basics, just regular line work. How to be able to just see an object and sketch it as your impression of it. We started with that. And then from that, we eventually evolved into whatever projects we used to handle with our clients. Every time everyone goes up to Pinterest and they reference. That's how everyone goes. No matter whatever fresh design you come with, we'll be like, but son, this is what we like. We'll be like, okay. What we happen to find is they like a lot of these exotic stuff. And as much as we are able to develop it by sketch and on 3D, it's hard to bring that idea to life. And so then we figured, like Ashwin said, the best way to get something to life is you have to get it into yourself. You want to make a cupboard, you have to make it yourself. So then, so we figured, why not get into making the products for the houses that we want to design? So we stepped down from large scale to something smaller. And then in that journey, we broke it down to, from there, again, we shifted to set design. We worked on film. In 2017, 18, we worked on a film. We worked on a set design. And while doing set design, we happened to do storyboarding. And because we also used to do a lot of graphic art and painting, poster designs and all came rather easy to us. It was first nature. This is all, again, like organic. It's by the flow. Not like we have fixed that we are only going to do houses. Somebody approached us saying, can you do posters? We thought, oh yeah, we like doing it. Might as well give it a try. Hey, Ashwin, can you do some storyboarding? Yeah, I like sketching. Might as well give it a shot. So it's more like a yes man mentality.
Lovely, right? Because I think somewhere thought about this. I think in architecture school, Sometimes there's no place for no's. You begin to learn to say yes to multiple things. We've all done it. Period of time, you learn boundaries. You learn to sort of filter out as you sort of.
Is what gives, yeah, the beauty to it. Like you said, the limitations give you.
But I think in a setup like yours, there are so many things happening. Like you said, both of you sort of know what your strengths are and you bring a little bit of that. But in a studio like yours, how does a raw idea really begin? Because I feel approaches are many, right? Approaches are many. The kind of concepts, I think you both lead very different roles. So how do you navigate where that idea begins? How do you say that, okay, this is where I take that step forward to make the decision, make the execution, etc.? How do you split between yourselves?
I think we can explain it with an example, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah. So imagine this shape.
Mhm.
I'm keeping a flat object over here. So I'm keeping on the one-third portion of this table. I mean, table or maybe something like that. So we have designed a table like this. I'll show you one thing. Let me share my screen. So, okay, I just wanted to show our logo. This is our logo. Yeah. So here is the dining table.
Yeah. This is an actual dining table. This is actually, it's not a render. This is an actual dining table on site.
Okay. Okay.
So how we,
So
yeah,
this is
yeah,
actually
Bihag,
something
you can
Aswin
explain.
led with. So at first, when it comes to concept, we don't dismiss an idea being absurd or whether it's brilliant. We, just wing it. We swing with it. So he came with the idea and said, why not make a cantilever sort of table? And my goal was to take his swing and try to bring that to life. And midway through, if we figure if this idea is not working or it's not practical, we don't get to the practical stage yet. At first, like he said, he showed the egg piece at one corner of the table. Now, while modeling, it's possible. You can make any 3D model and it's going to stand. But when it comes to life, how do you, break these limitations, as he said? So it's when you throw in these constraints, a lot of creativity comes out. And Ashwin, you can go on and explain the design bit.
So you understood the basic simple design, but the most complex part of this is the structural design, first of all. So how we imagined how we can solve this structurally is that we took the example of auto rickshaw, the three-wheeler transportation vehicle. Imagine that egg as the front wheel, and what you can actually see here is the glasses. And the glasses have been designed in a way such that how the axle of the back wheel of the auto rickshaw is designed. So it is stable. It will not move. And actually, I think the only defect of this particular table is it's almost 12 to 14 seater, and the weight is almost 400 kgs.
But the thing is, nobody would want to move the dining table. It's a designer piece. If they would want to move, they were about 6 to 7 people to move it.
So
I'm
I'll
just
show you the other.
curious to sort of sell a design like this, right? How do you convince your clients? Because, like you said, we live in a world where Pinterest is somewhere telling them, guiding them, mentoring them through the process. Is it easy to get clients who are actually agreeing to do something this different in some sense?
I'll be honest with you. It's actually a form of trickery, and it's not the kind of word I want to use. The thing is, and this is something we learned earlier in our profession. If you present a design and say this is done by Zaha Hadid or by Norman Foster or Gehry, they'd be like, oh wow. Even if it is something you sketched or something ridiculous, the trend is locked in their brain. It's the brand, the name. And they'd be like, wow, this is brilliant, this is great, even if it makes no sense. And if you make something mind-blowing, something perfect, something fully solved, and you show it to them, they'd be like, yeah, not so sure. So a couple of times we have used a few tricks where we have presented our design through another medium. Where we haven't claimed it's ours, where it is amongst a part of the other references, and they kind of fall for it. And somehow we kind of corner them to making this decision. It's not like we force them. If they really don't like it, yes, we get it from their body language, but we can tell from their language. There is no inhibition. There's no judgment at that point. They're seeing the design for what it is. They're like, oh yeah, this is great. And then midway through, it'd be like, yeah, we kind of did it, and we can get this easily made. So halfway they're kind of locked. There is no in or out. So a couple of times that's the only way we can pull off these kind of bizarre ideas. Because
I think we can show the ring that we have designed.
yes, so generally in our team, Ashwin manages to bring out the most absurd idea functional. So at first it used to be me throwing a hard ball. I'd throw a table that's probably standing on one leg or on a pin, and he'd take one look, he'd be like, yeah, that's not possible. But then he would go back home and he'd work around a way as a magician. It's like our job is to trick the audience. I will figure a way to solve this. And that's what he does. As much as he hates the
And
role,
why I'm able to do it because I know AutoCAD really well. He
I know all the other unnecessary complex and work.
The very fact we sort of call this concept to culture, right? That if there is no concept, there is really nothing to sort of bring about. Now, the idea of concept, right? Or rather, romanticizing a concept, we did whole. And then I think after you graduate, you unlearn or you sort of decide, you know what, I am going to be a romantic with architecture. I am going to romanticize everything. Or you say, no, this is too much of romanticizing. I will sort of get on board and start working, right? So how much do you think is it important to romanticize your concept? Or rather, I think if you can tell us how important the inspiration or that concept really is in the process of making something.
you have to fall in love with what you do actually, first of all. When you fall in love, you cannot stand up from there. Just fall. Okay. Even the pencil that you use, you actually live with it. Okay. That's what we do actually. One pencil, it means a lot for us. That line, it means a lot for us. And the concept, it evolves. It's not just one idea. It keeps evolving. I think one of the projects that we have done is the Faros. That's the first project that we actually designed as a firm. It has two arches, and it's a modern lines, but we wanted to bring traditional stuff into it. So that was our initial idea. And one of the craziest idea that was there was a ring. It looks like a nose ring, right? How was it?
Ideally, the ring, if you look at it, you're going to claim, is it really necessary? I remember the time when so we two did two absurd things into this house. And this is at a phase where more than understanding the client, what they required first, it was our eagerness to put our stamp. Like, we are cool architects. We can do crazy stuff. It started off like that. Midway through, we matured and we understood it. The point is to cater to the client. But anyways, I went ahead and did this ring, to which Ashwin said, do we really need it? And like you said, we are so tuned into seeing that we need a form to have a function or a function to have a form. We didn't really care because we figured aesthetic, this is where we differ. Like Ashwin said, he has to fall in love with it. Whereas I am not too attached to the idea of being too attached to a concept, because you have to let go. Because if it is my product, if I'm doing a painting by myself, the painting is for me. But if I'm doing a house, the house is for someone else. So if there are ideas that you love so much and something that they reject, you can't really hold on to it and try your best to convince them. But this is going, if they don't like it, they simply don't, it's not their cup of tea. But like for this house session, you can show it. I done this ring at first, which he said, is it really necessary or does it make any sense? We should add a function. I figured, yeah, we might as well add some light to it so that way it'll light up the entire exterior.
So we are showing some
The
on
construct.
site, which is, I think, 1 year before this photograph. So what you can see is one arch here and the other arch 90-degree to it. And there's a ring of, I think it's up to 30. What's the circumference we got? 30
35, the
meters.
perimeter, yeah.
30, yeah,
35.
yeah. And this is the ground level. So where you can see the bike over here. So it's standing on that height. And also we have not just did that as a structural element.
Yeah. The actual, breaks come in.
So
While I
is this
do
where
the
this is the concept where you were saying is it the nose ring? What was that the
yeah, so
inspiration?
ideally,
I just want
yeah, you're right. You're right. So ideally, what happened is one day, accidentally, when one of us were crossing through the site from the opposite side, it appeared like the nostril of a human being and a ring that the ladies put on it. It looked almost exactly like that. Actually, the exterior is it's got two arches this way, practically like a nose, and it goes around. So this actually works. Eventually, initially it started as an aesthetic bit, but Ashwin managed to make it more structurally and functionally essential. So we added light to it. So instead of having a chandelier in the library room, this goes through the library room. We added a light to the ring, which works as an interior light and an exterior light as well, which lights up the garden below. And it works as a structural at the circular windows.
We are not getting any hard light. It's all lighting that we are getting on the complete house.
This is a phone photograph and enough light that covers the area.
where is this located?
Right here in God's own country. It's in Kerala itself. It's in the letters. Proceed with this. Pretty lovely clients. Yeah. So they They're pretty
Okay.
crazy.
No, output says that, right? There's a lot of freedom with expression. I'm sure you have a story to it, but do you really tell your clients how raw it is, your thinking process?
No, we wouldn't dare.
And why do you think I think inspirations can be really bizarre, right? And I feel that in some sense has also led you into something like filmmaking. So tell me a little about that, right? How much of an influence has art and architecture? You can't look at these in isolation. I think once you've enrolled into architecture school, this is what I tell students. Forget about
Yeah.
looking at life the same way that you did before you enrolled, right? You're looking at life with a whole different lens. And to be honest, I only feel from one architect to another, we get it, right? It's very difficult to explain this to someone outside of this. But how did that begin to influence filmmaking? Did that become easier? Because I feel, like you said, right? It is the mother of all art in some sense. So, how did these influences begin to sort of camouflage or maybe even stand out?
Actually, it's vice versa. Filmmaking is what came first. Architecture was a form of necessity for bread and butter sort of thing. Our family. Ideally, if it was left to Ashwin and myself, Ashwin would probably take his sketch pen and just sketch all day to Guruvayur temple or to a great location somewhere up north and just sketch all day. It's very simple. Filmmaking also came through like that. We've always liked, I'm sure during our college days, we used to make short films and a couple of, but because the collaboration made no sense actually, because it's coming together of people with different ideas, and there is one captain, there's one vision, and there's a lot of crisis. So at that time, even though the assumption is there is a musician there, then there is a set director, there are so many creatives working with them. Managing the egos is the hardest bit, not getting the skill out of them. It's because it's one of the same differences Ashwin and myself we had, which is why, like I said, we started off as rivals. But once we set aside all of that, you open the gates. So it's more like filmmaking has seeped and morphed into architecture, which is why all of these dramatic approaches we have, like having the table on an eggshell. Would you really want an eggshell table if you think you wouldn't want to? You just want four legs, you want to eat your dinner, you want a table quickly. But then we think we want character. We want something over there that you'd look at and think, that is beautiful. It's always nice to have a good work of art in front of you. It's nice. It's pleasing to the eye and to the mind. So filmmaking started much early, even much before. While Ashwin and myself, we didn't necessarily know that's the path we were going into. We just kept practicing what we like. As long as we had a camera in our hand, a couple of pencils, we would figure out. Ashwin would sketch either a storyboard or a scene over there, figure a way to craft it and shoot it. And because we, as architects, got our hands on many softwares, we have the advantage of playing with posters or editing software. I mean, nowadays, everyone does a lot on phone. It's a lot more accessible. But even then, we're a bit old school when it comes to that. We like a couple of things done, without that much ease. So then started editing, and then we started making music for it. And then we assumed, okay, since we are able to do almost, a whole lot of this, we might as well just put it all under one roof in the name of architecture. And that's what happened. We didn't necessarily aim it the other way around.
Right. As towards you, because I think Bihag's been mentioning about how much you sketch. There's a lot of pen to paper that happens, a lot of line art. I think that's where you sort of begin. Now, I'm asking you this question because we're in 2025, right? Me speaking about this 10 years ago would be a very different context. With everything that's happening around the world, with softwares, considering I teach as well, and I'm sure you all are walking into universities teaching students, you see that the concept of the pen to paper is a lot lesser, or openness to it is a lot lesser than it used to be maybe when we all did architecture, right? So can you sort of enunciate and tell us what this process is and why is it important? Where again, not saying you have to be great artists to put pen to paper, right? But just the thought process and the ideation, and why do you have to sort of do that, even though we are in a very tech-led world today?
One thing I really love sketching is one thing is that I can improve my observation power. So when I look at it, like, it's something called, you can improve, when I do a lot of it, I can remember each and every detail what I see. That is one another aspect of it. Okay. So I can remember things, and to the detail, I would say, like each and everything. So when we actually, okay, maybe when we are sketching something, maybe an urban scenario or something, maybe there is a tea shop, there is another scooter standing there. I even look at how the spokes, the wheel spokes of that particular scooter. So I even learn about it unknowingly. So see, during maybe hundreds of scooters, I can easily tell about, okay, this is that kind of scooter, always. The color, everything, the places. Maybe even, we can say that memory stays in smell, right? Even that smell also, maybe it comes into place. And why is it important? What I believe is that what we imagine here, it's very vague. It's very difficult to explain in words, isn't it? Like in any languages, any vocal languages. And sometimes if we have that skill or talent, I would say to represent, or maybe if what I visualize, if I can draw it exactly means I can communicate really clearly what I think, like we write or something like that. But when we mostly into sketching means our visual thinking capabilities increases, not just an artistic one, but there are scale, proportion, material. So even when we are doing a monochrome sketch, we make differentiate a stone, a wall, a plant leaf, that two different kind of leaves with a pencil or a pen itself. We make the rendering techniques different. That if we have that knowledge, it is easier to do realistic 3D renders. If we have that layering knowledge. Thing that we used to do it in the Photoshop before is collages. But with any kind of software, like any simple software, any sophisticated software you have, the idea is framing. So when we are actually rendering, or maybe we are setting up a scene for a residence in the urban scape, maybe in the Bangalore or something, we study the location first. If it is in JP Nagar or maybe Jayanagar, we know how the scene is, but it is different for a Tumkur region. So we remember the landscape. It should be something like that. And each and every detail will be placed like that in a way that the complete context look very realistic. So the same thing even goes for the movies also sometimes. That's how we do the storyboards. Each and every minute detail, there is a side table, there is a lamp over the side table, which is warm in color specifically. So technical knowledge with artistic one, it develops.
I think you said that context begins to sort of, in some sense, become a part of you when you make these sketches and observations. So, this is in the sense for a question for both of you, where how much of an intent do you make to actually, your output beginning to have like a cultural influence? Is it an intent that you start off with, or is it more like, I also feel like when you design, an output will anyway have an influence on somebody, right? Whether it's cultural or there is some impact, and we cannot take away culture from whatever we design. When it's anything that comes out where people get to use it. So is there an intent? Do you like sort of start a project saying, okay, I am going to focus on the cultural expression, or is it more like you focus on the process and there is an influence which sort of comes out by itself?
When we start, I think what I remember when you suddenly asked this is that we want to make this design great, whatever it is, whichever the context it is. If you're designing something in Dubai, the kind of design, the elements, everything is different. The people likeness, okay, for them, the word luxury is different. But the same case, if you're designing that thing in maybe in India, maybe in a coastal region or something, that kind of designs are not much maybe appreciated. They need something with a lot of ventilation, balconies, and everything. So the intention is whether it's in an air conditioned room or whether it's the open landscape design or anything, we wanted to make the idea behind when we draw that is that we have to make this design great. That is the intent. So for that, whatever happens, we will make sure that we'll stick on to that particular idea, whatever it takes.
No, but this is when, again, we are strictly sticking towards a certain discipline. This is again within architectural service between the architect and the client. Your sense of culture, so it starts with one. Ideally, you never start with an intent saying that this is going to, when Ashwin says great, is probably not. So if I am designing a house for a client, I can't do it as per my liking. It has to be as per the client's liking. What you try to do is you try to put in a language of your own. That is, if you have a certain, you can't ask Hadid to make a building like Norman Foster. You can't ask Norman Foster to do something like Hadid, which is what most of them do. They come to us and they ask, can you make a design like them? But until you are a certain established person, you are not allowed to stand your ground and be like, no, this is my style. This is what I'm going to stick to. That's really hard. Whereas if we switch to product design, a product design is first primarily as per our like. What resonates with us? Do we like this piece? It's very simple because these days anything and anything flies there because you have wide set of options. So there is always a group that likes a certain product, a certain cult following it. So in this scenario, in this landscape, almost anything can work. Your job is to make it functional. And if you can convince and sell it to them well, that's a whole other aspect again, marketing. But when we make the product, we make it to our liking first. Do we like this product? Yes. Do we like this handle? Yeah. Do I want it to look like this? Sure. And if a client likes it, yeah, they can buy it. They take it if they buy it, if they like it. If they don't like it, they don't have to. So that is when it comes to product. Now, when it comes to filmmaking, again, there's a lot of people at play, users and the actors and the writers. But again, first and foremost, it's always self. This is something we've been taught as musicians. They said the first, somebody had asked this question, sir, and there's another example. Sir, most people don't like jazz. How, you as a listener would be able to judge if this works for the audience or not? And the pianist says the first listener is always the pianist himself. He has to like it for him to play it well so that the audience can catch the soul in it. Otherwise, it's never going to work. If you're doing it for the sake of delivering something, it really never runs. Most of these cultural situations that most of them claim, something has become iconic, something has become a culture or a trend. The one who has designed it almost never aims for it. It is an accidental byproduct or something that just caught on for its time and wave. And it's the fabric of it keeps shifting. And nowadays, it's even more shorter, if anything. Something can come and last for literally 1 week, and the next week they have forgotten about it. So, yeah, that's pretty much my take. It's very circumstantial.
Very, yes. As you were speaking, I think from the beginning, you all are talking about a lot of different ideas which come from random places, which take form in its own beautiful way. Something that I always speak to a lot of people through the podcast is about baggages, right? I feel like we're not who we are. We're not the work we produce, if not for our baggages, right? If not for the fire within us, for whatever reason, taking us into this path. So, what is your opinion about baggages and art? Is it important? I mean, there's no one way to it, right? But what's your take on this?
My practice name, Ashwin Kumar Antidotes. Okay. It's not Ashwin Kumar Associates or anything. Instead, I make it as Antidotes. So there was a time that I used to work with a lot of architects in a way, like, at a time. You won't believe this. And my mentor was architect Fawaz Nangilan. He actually lead the firm called MITI in Shoolagiri. Okay. So how he trained me in such a way that, like, I work with different architects, maybe in a month, maybe two architects or three architects, so that he's on friends. So although I get to work with wall makers, I get to work with evolving radical aesthetics, thought parallels. Then there are like other few architects too. Okay, so what happened through that process is that I never knew how to run a business. Okay, first of all, right? Isn't it? I mean, am I right going there?
It can be personal or professional. I mean, however it is. The point is, we are evolving. Our principle or our belief that we had last year is not necessarily we have this year. It's mainly our failures that are shaping us more than our success. So
Exactly.
it's all these baggages, like
The thing
Ashwin.
is, like, there are a lot of stories. The thing is that because that is the point where I understood that business or even the practice, I would say, the practice, architecture practice, it's not very easy.
Mhm.
I thought I was really good at design, okay? And I understood during the process of my training period while I was working, there were situations where um, we were humiliated on site by the clients. And still, we really wanted to do that execution, like, that particular design on site. It's just because of the love for, I mean, to me personally, was okay. I have committed this word. I have to complete this, whatever it takes. Also, in that cases, this kind of baggages comes in, like, financial baggages because they don't pay on time as the clients. Yeah, and the tragic part was at that point of time when I was working with all these architects, they had to pay a huge amount. We had to shut down the office.
Mhm.
So completely. So I would say that's the point where we all got scattered. Like, I went to one side, like, my mentor, like, I always wanted to work with him. Okay.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
luckily, like, last year we signed an agreement also with him, like, to collaborate recently. So that is also happening parallelly. And, one thing, uh, even we had financial constraints, this kind of issues, like, when labor management or maybe the project management, sometimes we are responsible. The clients think that we are responsible for it. And the contractor leaves and the project has to happen, right? So even though we had a lot of other works, we have to be on site instructing each and every laborer. Maybe even we have to go buy stuff, even a small screw, the nail and everything. Sometimes there were situations like that because there is no professional labor facility available in our country, first of all. Okay. Someday they say, okay, I'll come next week, Monday, then we'll be waiting on the site. Then at that point, we'll be calling him, are you coming? No, sir, I'll be coming tomorrow. But like this, the particular project that we have shown you, the ring one, it is almost taken 3.5 years, supposed to in 1 year.
Not because the
So
project was difficult to execute. It's because they decided to keep their own contractor, and the absolute management and collaboration between our workers didn't go as smoothly as expected. So really simple things. You'd be surprised. Half of the bizarre stuff we had pulled off over there came out rather quickly. It's the most easiest things that took a lot of time.
we had to do a gradient paint or for a showroom. We had three paint teams came in and they couldn't do it. And at last we have to go up. I mean, it's almost three floor up high. And we had to do Bihag went, I was on the road on the call. Okay, you do this line. We have completely. We have to do this paint job.
It's just
Yeah.
sad sometimes, when there is a deadline in place and you're cornered. You can't wait for someone. You have to get down and play it yourself. So we figured, why not do it ourselves? The delivery is tomorrow. So, these are some of I wouldn't call them necessarily baggages as such. It's more like hindrances that's kind of shaped our perspective. Ashwin said it's mainly personal or financial baggages, and it's more of a survival instinct. If everything worked like a oiled rig, you'd probably make your design and you tell the client, this is my fee. He's going to agree in one shot. He pays us, we time, everything works brilliantly. But that's almost, they say, we'll pay it to you soon. It's going to be 2 weeks. And now we have to figure how to get that fund. And in order to lock that, we have to pull every trick up our sleeve.
I was sort of coming to ask you, how do you keep the fire alive? It's very exhausting, right? In a creative field, to say, you know what, I still choose to do this no matter what. Like I know Ashwin was trying to come into this call. Bihag, you were stuck with an emergency with a client. It's frustrating, right? It's off your work time. Do you sometimes wish you just did a 9 to 5 job?
No, but like you said, it's nice to have a few like-minded people who understand, who gets us. So which is why we're like, okay, it's another architect. It's nice because I it's about our struggles. They're going to be like, just as they would say, you're not going to understand our business. So it's a very different area. But like you said, it's not, our fire has not died out. We just transferred the fire into another cup or another place. That's about it. Many times we have given up and we said, we are done practicing architecture in the most typical traditional sense. Like at a point, we even worked with Live Space. And no offense to the company is all right, but we didn't like the practice here. And we kind of that up. We're done with dealing with the clients here. And in between, Ashwin went back to lecturing with the students, and Ashwin enjoys.
No, and one more thing, like, in between we did that movie, the short.
Ashwin actually tricked me into this. I'll tell you, because I have been trying to plan for the perfect years and the finance and the time, but I've been planning so much, I almost never got to a point to do it. And that's one of the advantages as to why I like to have Ashwin around, because he's more of a doer and a non-person. I'm more of contemplating and planning excessively. So he me into saying the fund is locked. We have everything in place. Don't worry, go ahead and start. And I started, and midway through, finance dropped. And now we have started. We have called so many people in place. Ashwin said, right now, you can't question. You have to ride forward. There's no looking back. Come what may. But it's simply because the fire died down in the architectural side, we figured we have to do something we like. And so we in the film, which was, I'd say, one of the best accidents that he drove me into. And because that film came out, our fire was rejuvenated up until the next failure. Then we decided, let's make another product. But the fire constantly dies. But it's like Ashwin says, our love for creation. The problem is we don't the art. We hate the practice. Is what frustrates us. The practice and the.
You also mentioned this. It's more of the failures than your success, which says, okay, it helps you finesse your business, if that's what you want to call it, or finesse your creativity to make the choices you do. So I think if we have to sort of wind up this conversation, this is for every person out there who's trying to shift their profession, right? Who's going through the hurdles like you and me on a daily basis. There is one part of you that's attached to the 5 years you've invested into. You are somewhere deep into practice, but you also want to be a little like Ashwin and Bihag, where you're doing so many different things, right? There is a reason you've chosen every day to wake up and choose creativity, despite the odds. So what's that one message you'd want to leave everybody who's listening to you with? Going ahead, aspiring, or doing what you love, because that takes courage. That genuinely takes courage.
Just, always one step ahead. Keep moving. Just keep moving. That's it. Even if you stop, it doesn't matter. Keep moving. That's it.
Either have a good partner like how I have Ashwin, who keeps the fire on, or else more of the in-house person. So if both of us just to sketch. I would sit in my room and sketch from my imagination. Ashwin would be out sketching something from reality. My message is you're ideally a product of your environment. Either you surround yourself with good people or surround yourself with good energy. If you have, and if you're kind of tired by the forces of the field or whatever it is that's put you down, simply shift your environment, get out and play in the field. Very simple.
Thank you so much, Ashwin and Bihag. This was great. So many nuances to what we spoke about. And I really hope your journey inspires a lot more